in the church, just nuts and bolts of what that looks like. And again, coming through our journey, basically there's 3 levels that we've seen in developing. If someone feels like they have a prophetic gift or a call, there's 3 stages, and the first one is personal, and that is growing it in your own prayer closet, just like Brother Brian talked about, is that it's got to come from that place of intimacy, and it's got to be real, that you begin to operate in that gift. But then the next place that we often overlook is the small group. That is the place where you really are trained and mentored and grow in spiritual gifts. It's not in the corporate setting. By the time you get to a corporate setting, that's not a time for beginners to try to learn. That's what they need to do in the small group, where it's a trusted group of friends who can give them feedback, love on them. You can talk about it, debrief. That's the place where you grow. And then you begin to understand, okay, wait a minute, wow, this person really seems to be consistent, and they're growing, and man, they're hitting it. And through relationship, then when you get to the corporate level, it's relationship, because you've heard from the small group leader and you've seen the fruit in that person's life, that wow, we can trust, because it's been tested already of that gift that's on their life. Lauren Sanford has an excellent book called Understanding Prophetic People. The last chapter in that book is worth the whole book, because he's a pastor and he's a prophet. But in that last chapter, it's really for pastors of how to approach prophetic in terms of facilitation. And something that caught my attention was he said the platform is a place of increased authority. It just is. When someone speaks from the platform, it automatically magnifies everything that is said. And he said that, through the years he's learned, he doesn't just give the mic to anybody anymore because of that authority. And as a pastor, he's guarding too. And so, he was just, again, affirming some of these things, that there's a process. And so many times it's, for intercessors that come and feel frustrated, this is something we have to grow in as leaders as well as prophetic people, in learning, okay, how can I grow? Because I need to grow. You may have a gift, but just like Brian said, you're probably going to need some training and some trial and error, to really hone that gift. And so that's a process that you just realize you work out. But the more that you build trust, and if you feel like you have a word, when you go and share it with the pastor or whatever, and you submit it, you let it go. I mean, there's a lot more to be, we could teach on this, but the idea is to building trust and relationship and communication. That's so key, is to really communicate with each other. Do you have anything to add with that?
Yeah, pastorally, my view is that I kind of have grace for incidences, and I want to address patterns. And somebody can have an incident and it not go well.
Describe an incident.
Whatever. Just, I know you might make a mistake, or they might do something, or they you're in high praise and everybody's in high praise, and the worship team dies down and the congregation dies down, and there's one person that's still in high praise for another minute or two. You're like, whoa, wait a minute. Okay, that's good. They were having a moment with God. We can handle that. But if the next Sunday the same things happen and that person's still in high praise for 5 minutes and we've already died down, and there's, wait a minute, maybe God's not in this. So again, it's a pattern that starts to develop. So pastorally, I have grace for incidences, but I step in and address patterns. Or we as an elder team, say, what are we going to do? And we might go over to that person, put our hand on them, ask them if everything's okay. Sometimes if somebody's praying loudly in tongues and nobody else is, we're like, put our hand and say, hey, would you like to go to the prayer room and finish this out? Oh, sure, And you can always tell if a person really wants to be under authority, they're just having a moment with God, if they will agree with the authority. If they don't want to, then you can tell, wait a minute, they're just doing their own thing, and we need to then take some other action. So again, you have to learn how to do it relationally, but that's kind of my key in things that happen that are outside of the box. It's interesting that my son Nathan was at Bethel, and he said the first year that Bethel allowed the first year students to worship any way they wanted to. I mean, if they wanted to dance, they could dance, lay hand. I mean, just anyway, it was all individual. He said the second year that we went, that they stood up the first week and said, now listen, we're all going to worship as a body. We're not going to worship as individuals anymore. We're going to worship as a body. And he said, wow. So they would actually, people that weren't worshiping for what the body was doing, they would actually tap on the shoulder and say, okay, come on, because this is a body thing, not an individual thing anymore. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. To learn how to worship as a body, not just as individuals.
And I think that's something that maybe is new, because the church went through a season where I think the Lord was wanting to encourage people to step out, not to be afraid and to feel that freedom in the Spirit. But I think then we've gotten stuck in that, well, but this is of the Lord. Well, it may be, but this whole thing of corporate worship, we've had a knee-jerk reaction to it, and I've heard some say, well, they're just not, receiving, that's what the Holy Spirit is doing. But I think we need to just get a bigger vision. It's not a matter of you're wrong, because I know some dear intercessors who, they do that at home all the time. It's very real. But the bigger question is, what's God doing in the body? And it's honoring the body, because, it could be, because we've had it happen where a very sincere worshiper is just going all at it, and right next to them, they are not aware that this person is the first time there, and they are totally freaked out, and they don't want to come back. So that's where we have to think beyond our personal expression, and we have to think, what is God doing in the body? Who's around me? How are they responding? Are they being blessed? Are they being encouraged? Or am I, taking the attention, from the Lord? Are we really magnifying Him, or is it just drawing attention to me? And so I think we need to grow past this season of personal freedom and personal expression to this corporate expression, because that's what's going to draw the Lord back. It's the body expression. And all the individuals learning and discerning, what does that sound like? We've heard it prophesied about a sound. That's a corporate sound. It's not just one voice. And I think we're still finding out how to tune ourselves to each other to produce that sound.